There is a quiet but deliberate conversation taking place among men over 60, one that most people outside that group rarely hear or fully understand. It's not about rejecting companionship, nor does it stem from emotional damage or an inability to form meaningful relationships. Instead, it centers on a specific, well-thought-out choice many of these men are making with growing certainty, not allowing a woman to move into their home. The reasoning behind this decision is not rooted in bitterness or past hurt. Rather, it is grounded in logic, experience, and an understanding of real-world consequences that often only become clear after it's too late to undo them. This video aims to explain those reasons plainly and without softening the realities that have led many men to adopt this stance. The first reason is the legal risk tied to cohabitation, which is often far greater than most men think. While many are generally familiar with divorce laws, and may have personally experienced the financial impact of divorce, fewer fully understand how similar legal obligations can arise without marriage. In various parts of the country, a woman can gain legal claims over a man's assets, property, and financial future simply through cohabitation. Some states recognize common law marriage, meaning that couples who live together and present themselves publicly as partners may be treated as legally married, even without a formal ceremony. Beyond that, many states allow for palimony claims, and dependency-based claims for financial support can potentially arise anywhere, based on patterns established during the relationship. In certain cases, a cohabiting partner may even gain tenant rights, requiring formal eviction proceedings regardless of whether her name appears on any legal documents tied to the home. For a man over 60, inviting a partner to live with him is therefore not just a personal or lifestyle choice, it can also be a significant legal and financial decision. The potential consequences can affect retirement savings, property, pensions, and other assets built over a lifetime. For those who have already experienced financial loss in past relationships, the risk is often seen as too high to take again. The second reason centers on the idea that a man's home is the foundation of his peace, and once that peace is disturbed, restoring it can be incredibly difficult and costly. For a man over 60, his home is more than just a place to live. It represents a carefully built environment shaped over years, one defined by quiet, routine, independence, and complete personal control. Every detail reflects his preferences, the temperature, the schedule, the level of silence, even what's in the fridge. His mornings unfold exactly as he chooses, without compromise or the need to accommodate anyone else. However, when another person moves into that space, those personal systems inevitably begin to change. At first, the adjustments seem minor, small shifts in routine, slight interruptions to silence, subtle compromises to accommodate another person's habits. But over time, these changes grow, and the space that once felt entirely his starts to feel shared, regardless of whether that change was ever clearly discussed. Once that balance is altered, it is extremely difficult to return to the original sense of control and calm without ending the relationship completely. For this reason, a man who protects the peace he has built in his home isn't being selfish, he's acting with awareness and intention. The third reason involves how the relationship itself changes when cohabitation begins, often in ways neither partner expected. Before living together, there is a natural balance, each person has their own space, and the relationship exists between those two worlds. Time spent together is a choice, freely made by both individuals. This voluntary aspect creates a sense of equality and mutual desire, because each interaction is intentional rather than driven by obligation or circumstance. But once a woman moves into a man's home, that dynamic changes. Her presence becomes constant rather than chosen moment by moment, and leaving is no longer simple. What was once a freely entered connection can start to feel tied to logistics and shared living arrangements. As a result, the man who once felt like an equal partner may begin to feel more like a host, a provider, or someone constantly adjusting to maintain harmony within his own space. This change isn't necessarily caused by either person, it's a natural outcome of shared living. Men who recognize this understand that maintaining separate homes can actually preserve the healthiest version of the relationship. Keeping that sense of choice and independence isn't a lack of commitment, it can be a deliberate way to sustain the balance that made the relationship fulfilling in the first place. For many men over 60, this is an important but often overlooked conversation, one that deserves more honesty and clarity, especially for those facing similar decisions. The fourth reason focuses on how financial dynamics tend to evolve once two people share a home, even when both initially have a clear understanding of their individual boundaries. This is often the most unexpected challenge for many men, because it rarely begins with obvious demands or pressure. Instead, it starts with small, reasonable needs, things that feel natural to support in a healthy relationship. A generous man may meet these needs without hesitation, not realizing the pattern that is forming. Over time, however, shared living creates a kind of financial momentum that gradually changes expectations. Expenses grow, boundaries become less defined, and contributions that were once optional start to feel assumed. What began as occasional support can quietly turn into an unspoken financial arrangement that neither person clearly agreed to, but that becomes difficult to question or undo. For a man over 60 who has worked hard to rebuild his financial stability, accumulating a home, retirement savings, and other assets, this change carries significant risk. Maintaining separate households acts as a critical safeguard, not a lack of generosity. Once that boundary is removed through cohabitation, restoring it often requires difficult conversations that can strain or even end the relationship. The fifth reason is what some men refer to as the visibility problem. Before living together, both individuals naturally present a more polished version of themselves. This is not deception, it is simply human nature. When time together is limited and chosen, people tend to be more attentive, considerate, and mindful of how they show up. But cohabitation removes that layer. Daily life reveals everything at once, the habits, routines, and traits that were once seen in small, manageable doses now become constant. Quirks that once seemed charming may become ongoing realities that require adjustment. The version of a partner that existed before moving in, the one that attracted him, gradually gives way to a more complete, unfiltered version that only emerges when there's no separation or reset between interactions. Men with life experience understand that this unfiltered version is the most accurate one. They also recognize that discovering it after someone has already moved into their home is far more complicated, and often more costly, than learning it gradually while both people still maintain their own spaces. The sixth reason ties everything together. At this stage in life, a man's home represents far more than property or comfort. It reflects everything he has endured, rebuilt, and secured over decades. It is a space shaped entirely by his choices, free from compromise, and aligned with his preferences in every detail, from how his days begin to how they end. Inviting someone into that space is not just a step in a relationship, it is granting access to something deeply personal and carefully protected. It means sharing the one environment where he has complete control and peace with someone who may not yet have proven, over time and consistency, that they can be trusted with that level of access. Men who understand this aren't rejecting connection or intimacy. Rather, they are protecting what they've built, fully aware of the effort it required and the potential cost of losing it. Their caution comes not from fear, but from experience, and from a clear understanding that decisions made too quickly can carry consequences that are difficult to reverse.